because it's kind of messy, and so is my life. And so am I. So why not have my decorations kind of represent that? Hey folks, welcome back. We are officially in gift giving season. As a maker, I am constantly trying to figure out what other people want and how I can provide that for them. But what about me? What do I want? I'll tell you what I want. I want to hoard less stuff. I know that collecting and hoarding things is just kind of the nature of the beast if you're a maker, but this is ridiculous. I am inundated with too many things. And that's coming from a maximalist who keeps all the things. Well, today I am probably going to be grateful that I didn't throw things away because I'm going to be doing some scrap busting holiday sewing projects. So while scrolling Instagram, I ran across the Halsey Homestead and found so much inspiration in their handmade holiday decorations. And my little pea brain went, I can do that and get rid of a lot of extra things. So the plan for today is, number 1, we are going to create some patterns. Number 2, I'm going to gather up all of my scrap fabric to see what I have. And it's a lot. Number 3, we're gonna cut some stuff out. And number 4, we're going to use the scrappy scraps until there are no more scrappy scraps left. Number 5 should be celebrate, but we're not gonna get there just yet. So the most important rule for today, I absolutely cannot buy anything. I will make do, and I must make do with what I already have. So let's start with some patterns. Okay, step number 1 is actually gonna be to make some space so that I can make some patterns because this is a wreck. Hello. So I'm gonna use this construction paper as my pattern paper. You know, you could draft this out on whatever you want to because it's your project, you do whatever makes you feel good. And there are probably 4 or 5 different patterns that I wanna make. A candy cane, I wanna make a mitten, maybe a tree, and a stocking. Pretty generic stuff, not overly complicated to draw. That's my kind of jam. I'm gonna put together some fabrics and we'll decide what we wanna make from there. So let's just make a bunch of shit. The reason why you should make patterns first is because you need to know what size your scrap fabric needs to be. And for me, I had to go elbows deep in my bin. But once I found a few pieces that were big enough, I got at it, cutting out whatever I could from whatever I could and saving all those tiny pieces. I also didn't worry too much about cutting things out exactly right before I took it to the sewing machine. I just wanted it manageable enough where I could sew and then I would cut it out later. That's one of the benefits of having the fringy edges, is you really don't have to worry about cutting it out too precisely at the beginning. Let's talk about how you go from cabbage to coleslaw. It is very, very easy, but there is some thought and planning behind the whole process that maybe you should be aware of before you go hacking away. First of all, we're gonna look at the size of the pieces that we have and then consider what it is we want to do with said pieces. Today, because I'm making holiday themed things, I want my red, my whites, my pinks to maybe be set aside so that I can quilt them together if they're large enough pieces. So I do have some of that red linen that I just used. I have some white pieces. I have a few pink border strip things, and I'm gonna set those aside so that I can maybe piece them together and create a bigger piece of fabric to make another thing out of. With anything like this little tail here, I'm not gonna sew that into like a quilted piece or anything, so I'm just gonna cut it off and use the bigger part. I'll use this corner right here, but the rest of it is a little too small. We're gonna set these aside and focus on the cabbage. In the last few months, I have actually made a conscious effort to cut up my cabbage as I go, and I even made kind of a cushion that I can hang near my sewing machine so that I can just stuff the pieces in there as I go. And then either use it as a cushion or use it as stuffing later. So I have some bigger pieces that are not useful as they are, and we are going to turn them into coleslaw. Here's what we're gonna do. You want one of these guys. We're gonna take it and just put it out on our table, and then we're just gonna go ta-da! That has been coleslaw making with Katie. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. What I learned through this process was the smaller your pieces, the easier it is to stuff these things. When they're long and stringy, they kind of get tangled up and bunchy, and then you have to shove them in there with a pencil. So cut them up really small, and it makes it a little bit easier to get everything stuffed. And don't forget to pin them closed, or else all that stuff is falling out. I have one candy cane and two candy canes. This one has got the fringy edges, and then this one clearly doesn't. They're both a little plain, I guess. I am going to take some of this cotton twill tape and put little hangers on the top so that I can hang them if I want to. But in all, these were pretty quick. So pull some more fabrics out and see if we can come up with maybe something that is a little more exciting than just noodle candy canes. We are on day 2. So I managed to put together a candy cane. These turn out okay, but they are a little plain. And I think what I liked about the Halsey Homestead was the quilting part of it, I guess, or the pieciness of it. I think that's what I should say. So I think that's what I'm gonna work on today, getting pieces quilted together. And I use quilted very lightly because this is not pattern quilting. This is piece quilting, or quilt as you go, or make shit up as you want to sort of thing. But I think that's what I'm gonna work on today. So I'm gonna grab my fabrics and kind of decide what goes with what, and then show you the process that I'm thinking of for getting this stuff done. It's like a limp little noodle. Could do a Christmas donut. I also need to make some more coleslaw because, shockingly, these actually used up quite a bit of what I already had. So I'll do that as well as the quilted stuff. I am not a quilter, I've said that before, but I also don't like wasting scraps of fabric, which is why I'm doing this project in the first place. So I'm gonna take these little pieces that maybe I can't use for a bigger project, and I'm going to lightly quilt them together.
Light quilting.
First, I'm gonna take the pile and I'm going to sort it into color schemes that I think work well together. If I have a darker color, then I want to pair it with a lighter color, and then have one with a pattern and maybe one without a pattern, just so that there's some contrast there. I don't want things that are too close together. And then I'm just gonna pin stuff together and sew it and iron it down and see what happens. I'll do that until I have a piece big enough to cut a shape out of, I guess. It sounds really easy and I think it's gonna be fine, but who knows? I have also developed a really fun cold, so today is really great. We're killing it today. So I worry that this part is gonna look a lot more planned out than it actually was. The only thing I'm doing is matching up sides that are approximately the same size. I'll trim them down if I need to, but that's it. Once I get things matched up, I do sew them together and then I press them flat. And then again, I just piece them back together. There was really very little thought that went into this whole thing, which I think kind of provides some charm. What I do know is if I tried to create these patterns, they wouldn't come out looking as good. I also tested this quilting method with the mitten pattern so I could see how well it's stuffed. What I did end up doing was backing the quilting part so that it gave it a little bit more structure and it didn't stretch as much when I was stuffing it, because as you can see, it is not a gentle process. So just something to think about. My quilting went fairly well. I don't know if I'd want to do it for a whole blanket, but for this, I think it did fine. So here's my little mitten. Look at how cute this guy is. I think it turned out pretty well, and I do like the raw edges just because it's kind of messy, and so is my life. And so am I, so why not have my decorations kind of represent that? So my little mitten turned out pretty well, and it's stuffed with scraps, which I love. And then here is my stocking, which I think is great. Look at how cute that is. I found this pillowcase a year or so ago that has the red and white Christmas details and then a little stripy fabric. So overall, this guy turned out really well. I'm actually very excited about this one, but I didn't have enough to do a second one. So one is all I'm getting today. But I'm hand tacking down the top ribbon piece just because I'm not that good with my machine. I'm gonna do some final details and then I guess show you what the final product looked like of all the things that I made. So here's the reveal.
Once I got into a groove, this was actually really easy and it was really fast. I think taking the pressure off of being a perfect quilter to just be an okay quilter actually lends to some of the charm that some of these decorations have. And because I'm using all of the scraps to stuff these things, cleanup is pretty minimal. You can also use a wide variety of fabrics. I had wools from old skirts and a really pretty lace shower curtain that made this gorgeous stocking. So whatever you have laying around, quilt it together and turn it into Christmas decorations. Then throw some greenery up there and you're set for the holidays. If you get a minute, check out my coffee page and I will see you guys next time. Bye!